Welcome everyone to the December 2nd OpenJ9 community call. As always, just a reminder to add your name and affiliation to the list of attendees so that we know who's been attending the call. And then I will pause here for a moment just to give people a chance to add things to the agenda. This is also a good time to bring up any community-centered questions or to raise any topics that you'd like to have added to the agenda later. We have any other business section at the end that's always open to adding things to throughout the meeting as well. So if you do come up with something, this isn't your only opportunity. Okay. So this week we have a lightning talk scheduled from Jason. And Jason, I see you're on the call, so I'll stop sharing if you're ready to take over and start your lightning talk. Jason, you're on mute right now. Jason, are you able to respond? Okay, might be having some technical difficulties, so why don't we kick things off as we usually do, and we'll circle back to the lightning talk. Jason, just let me know if you're able to get off mute. Continue from there. So then we'll take a quick look at the end user issues and see which ones have come in the last week or so. Looks like we only have one that's a discussion around class loading differences with JDK 15. Okay, so it looks like Jason's been commenting on this. We've targeted this to the January refresh, so it is something we'll have to make sure we get actioned in the near future. The other one here.
I tend to target any user raised issue to the next release, whether we can accommodate it or not. I'll stop doing that after we split. And then we'll start looking at what we have to move out to the next release that we can't accommodate in this one.
Okay. I know we're coming up closely on the code split date anyway, so.
Yeah, so as of next week, I'll start targeting user raised issues to the next release, but anything that comes in this week, I'd probably still target it to release 24, just in case it's a small change that we could get in. But we are going to have to go through the milestone plan and look at what has to be moved out.
All right, that approach makes sense. Thanks for clarifying, Pete. And there's a issue with check visibility. Looks like the error is correct. We just have to figure out why we're going down that path. Okay. All right, so take a quick look, is there any other issue on this list that somebody wants to call out that needs some attention or needs some discussion? So we'll go back to the agenda then, or the usual reminder around help wanted issues. And let's take a look at the download stats. So it looks like the adopt dashboard is down. I guess we'll skip the stats this week. Before we move into the discussion around the releases, I'll just pause here and see, Jason, are you able to come off mute?
Yes, let me try. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, cool.
Are you ready to give your presentation now?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, then I will stop sharing and you can take over.
Sure, thanks, Dan. Dan, can you see my screen now?
I can. The screen I see is the presenter view, though.
Or not the actual the slideshow? Okay, let me try that. Is that getting better?
You stopped sharing.
Oh, oops. Maybe swipe display, is that gonna help? Is it better now?
I still see the presenter view.
Oh, okay. Let's try share the whole screen to see if that's better.
There we go. Now I see the slides view.
Or you see, okay,
Oh,
for long
I
view.
did. Now it's just gone back to
Okay.
presenter. All right, there I see the slides.
All right, sorry for the trouble, guys. All right, here
No
we go.
worries.
All right, and my name is Jason Feng, and I'm with the IBM Jena VM team. And today I'm talking about helpful null pointer exceptions. And here is the agenda, some background information, followed by a few examples, and we'll do an implementation quick view, Q&A afterwards. So this is a typical null pointer exception. And from the stack trace, we have a Java class file name, 9 number, and the class method name. But we don't know exactly which variable field is null, causing null pointer exception, without using actual tooling or shuffling code around. So is it A, B, or C? So the question or motivation is, can JVM pinpoint the source of an MPE and identify its root cause? So actually, SAP commercial JVM implemented such functionality back in 2006. And last year, this JEP 358 help for null pointer exceptions was proposed to the OpenJDK community. This feature was introduced in JDK 14, disabled by default, and could be enabled with a command option. And it is enabled by default for JDK 15 now. All right, let's look at a few examples. This is an exactly same null pointer exception we just saw at the background session. So again, from the stack trace, we have file name, line number, class method name. And with this feature, JVM can pinpoint exactly which variable field is null, causing the null pointer exception out of box. Here is what it looks like. Cannot read field C because A.B is null. So that matches the code we saw above. Let's move to next example. This is about the multi-dimensional array. Similarly, we have some information about the file name, line number, class method. But the question is, which dimension index was null and caused null pointer exception? So this feature can pinpoint exactly which which array variable dimension index is null and cause null pointer exception. And the message looks like this. All right, move to next example. It's about the multiple method calls. So probably we want to know is method X or method Y return the null and cause the null pointer exception. This feature can tell us. So cannot sign field I because the return value of Y from inner class B is null. So that's helpful. And this is another example about multi-dimensional array with a slightly difference that there are two array variable here. They're going to be decided at the runtime which one to use. And here, this feature won't be able to tell which variable was used at runtime, but still give some useful information like this. So cannot load from int array because array at the index is null. The reason this feature won't be able to tell exactly which array variable was used at the runtime is because this null pointer exception message is computed based on a static bytecode analysis. I will talk about a little bit more about this at the implementation quick view. So let's move on here. So actually, this example looks familiar. It has appeared twice already. First time in background information session, and then another time is in early of this session. We already knew that this feature will give us help message like cannot read field C because A.B is null. This example we want to show another case is so A is the variable name for class A instance. This variable name is from class file debug info. Sometimes Java class not compiled with debug info. So when debug info not available, this feature still gives us some useful information like this. So local one is the location VM load the class A instance object. So this is when class file without debug information, especially without the username information. So this is still helpful. All right. So we are at implementation quick view session. That catch a null pointer exception. So null pointer exception get the message. If the message current null pointer exception message is null, then we'll invoke a native get the extended MPE message. JNI Java native interface JVM method get the extended MPE message. So this is in JNI internal now. This iterate stack trace will find out exactly bytecode location where null pointer exception was known. So that's a norm class, norm method, and then bytecode offset. So with these three pieces of information, get the MPE message will compute the help message we saw in early examples. So let's just, this is kind of come back then that information about we use the static bytecode analysis to compute the help message. So we cannot know, for this implementation, cannot know which array variable was used at runtime. So that's why here. And yeah, for the details, there are some reference after this session. We can look, if anybody interested, can look further over there. And this implementation has been enabled by default for OpenJ9, JDK 15, and it could be disabled with a command option minus show code details in exception messages. This is the references. First one is the JEP description, and followed by some issues and pull request. Yeah, that's all I have. And any questions?
Thanks, Jason. I know this was originally introduced in JDK 14, but is there anything stopping us from enabling this in older releases as well? Like, say 11?
Yes, thanks to OpenJ9, we put all version of Java 8, Java 11, and all the up level in one single source repository. So actually, all the native code ready to go to enable this feature for Java 8 and 11. Now we need a patch though in JCL code. For that get extended message. So let's go back to a slide here. So this get extended Get the extended MP message is only available since Java 14. So we will need to add some Java patch and also native patch as well to invoke this JNI and eventually go to JVM. JVM we already have it. So yes, we could do that to enable this feature for Java 8 and 11 with some, I would think, not a big effort.
Okay.
Does that answer your question, Dan?
Yeah, it does. It sounds like we could backport a small patch and then enable this, which I think would be helpful for people adopting 11, be able to get this as soon as possible.
Yes.
Any other questions for Jason?
Hi, Jason. I have a quick question. Is there any plan to enable this by default? Because I think all of us have gone to the trouble of having a no point exception, right? And it is a really cool feature to have it out there.
Yeah, it's already enabled by default for JDK 15 for OpenJ9. I think I mentioned here. Yeah, it's enabled by default.
Okay. I misread it. Cool. Okay, I misread. I thought it was enabled via. Okay, cool. Awesome. Thanks.
You're welcome.
All right, thanks, Jason. I'll take back the screen sharing. If there are other questions, feel free to contact Jason through Slack and continue the conversation there if there's more discussion required. All right, hopefully everybody sees the agenda again. And looking at our release milestones, we have the code split date coming up on December 6th, the 0.24 release, which still has 44 open items in the plan. And a number of these are marked as blockers. So I guess the question is, how do we want to work on taking down this list or moving out the things that don't need to be completed for this release?
Dan, for the compiler-related ones, the JIT-related ones, we are actively going through that list and figuring out the disposition of each of them. So hopefully, I think you have seen some updates in the last day. I hope in the next day or so that the rest of them will have some kind of action to them, either defer or a plan to fix in the next couple of days.
Okay. There are still options for, after we code split, if something is identified as higher risk, that we're still able to get it in, but as much as possible, we should be aiming to leave these things before the code split. Glad to hear that you guys are making progress there on the compiler side. Pete or Toby, is there similar effort happening on the VM side?
So for some of the VM issues, I've asked the people who've opened it, because some of them look like they've been addressed, so I think some can be closed. There's a subset where we know that we don't have enough time between now and the milestone to get it completed, and we likely won't get it complete for the 0.24 release, so I'll be reviewing those once again, and I'll likely defer those to 0.25. There's a subset where we think we are close, and we may be able to get it even before milestone 1, but if not, we will likely attempt to double deliver after the split. So yeah, I guess there's 3 categories there, and we're monitoring it, and we'll do our best to get as much of those in as possible.
I'd encourage moving things that you think are on the border out of the plan. We can always argue them back in once we have a fix if it's low risk, but better to get them moved out, so we're looking at the more accurate list of what needs to be closed out for the release.
Okay.
Is there any other discussions or items people want to call out, or concerns around items that are still in this plan? Okay. Then if we look, we also have the Java 16 release coming up in March, which has a code split at the end of January. Now, given that we start to run into holidays towards the end of December, early January, there's less time between now and that code split date, Java 16, than there normally would be, given the sort of 2 months we're looking at. So just a reminder to please be aware of that release coming up as well, and targeting items to that, and closing out the items that are targeted to that. Any comments on the upcoming Java 16 release? There is a new, or a JEP that we were aware was likely to be targeted to Java 16. I think it's JEP 390 on value-based class warnings for Project Valhalla. It's been proposed to target, the vote should complete, I believe, on December 7th, which will squeak it in just under the December 10th code split at OpenJDK. So there's a sort of a very short window in which we could still see new things come in to the Java 16 release. After that, it should only be bug fixes. So content on that release should be locking down fairly soon. The upstream content on that. All right. If there's no other comment on this, then Shelley, do you want to give us an update on Adopt?
Yeah, sure. Just a quick one. This week, there was a small respin yesterday um, to fix Jerry install issue with the Mac Homebrew installers. So some of you may have seen JDK 11 and JDK 15 on Mac re-released yesterday. I wanted to note that we're continuing to march through some of the backlog in the system test repo, which means more system tests are re-enabled. There's a list there, but notably there's the fixes around fixing proc dump and how we terminate processes on Windows. Though the bonus of fixing that is we believe that has been contributing to the problem of not being able to clean up Windows workspaces. So I know that that's been plaguing both OpenJ9 and Adopt, where we sometimes get in a scenario where we can't clean up the workspace. And that's certainly due in part to the fact that some of the processes that system tests launch were not getting cleaned up properly. So two fixes are in to address those related things. And then just want to call out a thanks to the GC team for helping and investigating on the Lambda load tests that are in the process of being fixed or re-enabled. I think that it's been really helpful for Simon. And then finally, the only last part is Dragonwell team. We had a meeting on Monday with them, and they have some contributions coming to the Adopt OpenJDK project, which include some additional testing, which we should be able to also apply to OpenJ9. And they also have an unsafe checker tool, which looks interesting. We'll figure out where it can be contributed to and probably give a update to this community meeting once that's in place. But I expect that'll be in the new year sometime. And that's all I have this week.
Thanks, Shelley. It's great news to hear that some of the clean workspace issues are going to be resolved or have been resolved.
Yeah.
Is the unsafe checker tool checking the use of unsafe, like Sunmisk unsafe?
Yes. Yeah, it's a Java agent that can, so maybe I'll plan to give a demo of it once we get it actually contributed, but it's essentially checking that, and it allows to do 3 or 4 different kinds of checks. So, when you have a crash or something, the crash log may be not so useful, but this agent can do a little bit more for you and then produce a report.
Similar to the JNI check style.
Yeah, I think so.
That's really cool.
Mm-hmm. We'll see where we can also integrate it into some of the test stuff we have as well.
Just pencil that in as a potential future lightning talk. Anything else that we should bring up with the Adopt discussion?
Not from me today.
Adam or Joe, is there an update on the infrastructure?
Nothing changed since last week. There's still 2 items on the list, but not much movement. So one of them is Windows cleanup as well. I was just looking at the one because it did happen again, and it was one build finished, it failed to clean up, but it passes because we have it set to not fail. And the next build comes along, and then it can't clean up because it runs a cleanup at the beginning. And it has the option to not fail, but for some reason it does fail. So have to look at how we can work around that somehow. But it doesn't seem to happen that often from what I can tell. So, and that's in a compile job, not a test job.
Any questions for Adam on the infrastructure? to the any other business section. Abneet, do you want to give an update on the OpenJDK method handles work?
Yes, thanks, Dan. So the update is we applied all our remaining changes on top of Eclipse OpenJ9 master branch, and we were able to compile locally successfully with the JIT. And the next step is going to be to enable testing, and we plan to do it locally as well, because since all of our changes are not merged into OpenJ9, so we plan to do our testing locally, and once all the changes are merged within OpenJ9, we plan to enable builds, nightly builds. And this sums up the update for the OpenJDK method handles.
Thanks, Pavneet.
Back to you, Dan.
And just to follow up on the discussion from last week, Pavneet and I continued to discuss, and I think we will stick with review and then merge. And I've committed for at least the method handles changes that I'm involved with to be very responsive on reviews on that. So if there are ones that are lagging, please tag me and make sure that we can make progress on them.
Yep, will do. Thank you, Dan.
CMake, Devin, is there an update?
Yeah, so the JDK 15 builds Pete launched. I noticed there was one error on the Windows build stuff. That appears to be something pretty simple. It's just missing patches to the JDK extension repo. So I'm kind of going through now and cross-checking all the current versions and making sure that all the relevant CMake patches are in all of them. The bigger one is Aches. Because we're using XL Clang there, it's basically just modifying the option set and adding support for the XL Clang specific stuff in the CMake side.
Okay. Is that likely to be ready at the same time for the? Well, actually, given that we're code splitting in a week, this is unlikely to. Sounds like this is unlikely to be ready for JDK 15.
Probably not, no.
The Linux platforms seem to work, but I don't think we should bother for 15. Let's just leave it alone, and then we could get everything enabled for 16.
Good. Marius, is there an update on the Kubernetes Helm and operator discussions? Marius isn't on the call, so we'll skip that one. You have an update on the microjit, or just a reminder of the upcoming meeting?
Just a reminder of the upcoming meeting.
Thanks, Scott. I know for the next item, the CanOSP project, the review has been ongoing. Marius has been leading that, and I believe has put a comment in asking for some help with that review. So if people have an opportunity to jump in and help get this reviewed, get the tool merged into the OpenJ9 utils. For the compressed and default combined story, do we have an update on that? Sharon?
Yeah, so the OMAR changes have been approved and are pending merge. The OpenJ9 changes are just awaiting approval, and then we will run a PR build there. And chatted with Lan last week, so that work has started. Maybe Lan can talk about it, but we're starting with the Linux mixed pointers to be enabled for tests?
Yeah, thanks, Sharon. I can speak on the test side. So we are, actually, I just merged the change to update autoweb.csv to have the Xlinux mixref spec added. So the next step is to update the Jenkins script so that you can just directly run the build to trigger one test build where test both compressed ref and non-compressed ref. At this point, if you directly trigger build, I think it will just fall into the default one, which is compressed. There's changes going, we're gonna do to update system test. Whenever there's no option, we will make sure that we will run test both compressed ref and non-compressed ref, which is mode 110 and 610. And then we will enable the parallel for the system testing. So the plan is try the Xlinux first, and once that's going well, then we can enable for other platforms.
And is JDK 16 still the likely target for this?
Yes, that sounds right to me.
Then the thing I couldn't remember last week is I think we're turning on some more parallelization of test runs to accommodate the extra tests that we'll be running. Right, Len?
Yes, I'm going to turn on the parallel runs for the system test. So we'll be. Sorry, go ahead.
You finish?
Yeah, I was just gonna talk to details. It's gonna be parallel on 2 platforms, on Sanity and Extended, and 5 for special dot system.
Is there anything we need to be aware of when triaging the parallelized tests?
It should be the same because functional test already is running in parallelization, so it's the same.
So it'll be different for special system because right now they're split up by directory, and then we're going to 5 machines, so they'll be split up differently. They might run faster because they'll be split up more by time, but you can't expect to find all the MOVE testing in some particular bucket, for example.
Right. So instead of folder, we're doing the test list 0, test list 1, and test list 2. That type of naming format.
So you're switching from by directory to dynamic?
Yes.
Yeah, cool.
So we're starting with 5 machines, which is the number of folders that we're running tests for, but we might want to increase the 5 in the future. I think we're just going to see how it goes and adjust as necessary.
Yeah. Yeah, dynamic is by far the more efficient way to do it, especially as you get
I don't think the directory approach was splitting it fairly. Some of the buckets are running quite quickly, and other ones are taking quite a long time.
Yeah.
Will this affect grinder reruns of these if you try to restart a bucket or try to grind a particular bucket?
The rerun links should still work to allow you to take pieces, because at the end of in the console output or the rerun link that's in the Jenkins view is still just going to pinpoint the failing target. So I believe we've checked that works.
Yeah, so the special restart ability we have for OpenJ9 nightly builds has never been able to restart individual buckets. You can only restart all of Sanity Function or Full Example, which will run both parts of it.
You're talking about the restart ability in Jenkins itself? Or you're talking about the.
Something the jobs do. The parent job allows you to restart the child job
Yeah,
if it
okay,
fails.
that's different than what I was talking about, which is the rerun in Grinder link that we produce from the test pipeline. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so I wasn't sure which one, or maybe John was asking about both things.
Yeah, well, it's good to probably clarify, confirm that those still work, but there's essentially two different ways you can rerun all or pieces of job. So I'm not sure. It's probably worth committers revisiting that they know how to do that.
Yeah, I think the description here is certainly helpful for anybody who doesn't do it as often, just to be aware that the rerun links still give them what they want, and the restart jobs link in our Jenkins will restart the entire set, not an individual bucket.
Yeah.
And just a note, people can still go to the children job and restart that one. That's still an option. It's just not going to update, I guess, the Jenkins pipeline, the root one, the result on the root one. But if they go to the particular job and then rerun, that still works.
Okay. Any other questions around this? Then the next item on our list is the stop ship criteria issue, where there's been some discussion.
Yeah, thanks for putting all those notes in there, Pete. But essentially what I wanted from this is to be able to take out the instructions on the adopt side, that is, check with Shelley and check with Pete Shipton. Because if Shelley or Pete Shipton go away on vacation, then there's not a instruction for anyone else. So
well, it really should be check with the OpenJ9 project, maybe post in the committers, the public committers Slack channel, and ask all the committers.
Yep. So I'm going to update the instructions on the adopt release doc for that. But it's worth having the conversation here in the community meeting of OpenJ9, because not all committers maybe participate as actively during a release, but they will be asked for opinions if need be. So worth all committers at least, and all contributors, to go check out that conversation in issue 11,034. And then Dan, just follow up from your earlier, you couldn't get to dash V2. Apparently they've renamed it to dash, but someone will add a redirect in case people have the dash V2 link.
I see you've updated the link earlier in the docs as well, so thank you for that.
Someone else did, but yeah, it's all good.
Yeah, that was me updating the link.
Thank you.
No worries.
Is there any other conversation for today? All right, then we'll have the next one of these calls on December the 9th. Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Great. Thanks a lot. Bye.